My name is Dawn H. Jones and today's topic is called Everybody is Under Authority. Now, organisationally speaking, everybody reports to somebody. The junior employee reports to the supervisor reports to the first line manager reports to the middle manager to a senior manager, and the senior manager reports to an assistant director. Now, the assistant director reports to an exec director, and the exec director reports to the CEO. And the CEO reports to the chair of the board. Keep going with me. The chair of the board reports to government, shareholders, etc. Now, my point is this. Every employee, irrespective of how senior they are, is accountable to somebody within a management structure or within some kind of organised context. There are no exceptions. In addition to this, some professionals have an additional layer of being subject to external professional regulation. Now, you may think this is all obvious, but just bear with me for a moment. Integral to management arrangements are HR policies and procedures signed off at the exec level as part of the governance processes. And well-written policies set out sound people management practices and employment law, which, if followed, should set the scene for good employee relations. So far, so good? Now, just imagine with me for a moment. Imagine that there is a manager who willfully believes that they do not have to follow agreed policies. They believe that they have the option of departing from agreed processes based solely on their seniority, and they choose instead to do their own thing, literally. The outcome? Well, more often than not, protracted disciplinary and grievance processes, sickness absence, breakdown in employment relationship, corporate risk, and to top it off, perhaps an employment tribunal claim thrown in. Now, to be sure, most organisations will stage an intervention and require the manager who's acting inappropriately to immediately course correct and align their behaviours to the required acceptable standards of conduct. Now, if an employee is concerned that their manager's decisions and actions are not in line with policies or good management practices, or indeed the ethos of the organisation, they may require support to address their concerns. And if that's you, potential sources of assistance include speaking to your manager or your manager's manager, a trade union rep. You may also choose to speak to a trusted colleague, or you can access your employer's employee assistance scheme confidentially. So let me give you an example of what I have been talking about. Pat's manager is called Bert. Now, Bert informs Pat that he's going to place her on stage 1 of the performance management process for failing to complete all of her tasks to the standard required over the last few days. Pat responds that her newly diagnosed diabetes had affected her concentration. However, her condition is now under control and she's happy to provide a note from her GP to confirm what she said. Bert, on his part, disregards everything that Pat has to say, and he insists that as her line manager, he has the authority to manage her poor performance formally. Bert writes out to Pat inviting her to a formal performance meeting. Now, by this point, Pat's become increasingly upset and distressed at the thought that she's going to be formally managed. And she decides to speak to Bert's manager, Jack. Jack listens carefully to Pat and then speaks to Bert. And he advises Bert to pause the performance management processes while he asks Pat if she would like to be referred to occupational health. Pat agrees and she's assessed by occupational health. And at that appointment, she provides a letter from her GP confirming that she had complained of lethargy and confusion immediately prior to being diagnosed as a diabetic. Jack reviews the occupational health assessment with Pat and confirms that there are no grounds for performance processes. Now, the crucial thing to keep in mind is this. Everybody is under authority, and the exercise of managerial authority is subject to organisations, policies, processes and legislation. And of course, the thought of what would a reasonable manager or what would a reasonable organisation do in relation to this specific context or circumstance. Remember, be HR wise. Bye-bye.